Mode. There's a couple things on your calculator you have to know about. Mode is the first button you want to hit because we're going to change from our usual mode of regular function to parametric, since that's what we're doing. Now parametrics, if you remember from last time, it's nothing fancy. It's this, we're graphing with a timestamp. Like we're plotting points, x and y coordinate points, and we're telling you at what time we plotted that point. That's essentially what it is. It just adds this thing called a parameter, a time parameter, or some other variable parameter. So that's why it's parametric. It's a parameter we're changing, like time. There's an option next to function under mode that's called parametric, and if you click enter on that, then you get a new mode, and the way you'll notice it is if you go to y equals, you'll see that we have an x and a y that's available to us. The sheet that I gave you guys, so if you look at the notes that I gave you guys, there's a problem, that first one that we went through, we've already plotted part of it, but this is, I want to show you the calculator's version of plotting this, which is kind of cool. So if you guys see that page right there, and I can put in that t squared minus 2, oops, it's come back. I don't mind that, but that t squared minus 2, the thing that we had on the screen a minute ago, and the y equals 3t, that's what I'm going to put into y equals and x equals. Okay, so let me move this over a wee bit over on the side here. You want to play it? You want to do that with me? So I'm going to make this small again because I can't see. T squared, and watch how you get t. See x, t, theta, and n, the button that usually got x from? It's not x anymore, it's a t. So in parametric mode, that button puts in the variable that's most useful, which is for us t, minus 2. So we get the x. This is the same thing we did Friday. Keep that in mind. You saw this. You had no issues with it. That's why I said don't write anything at first, and then we just kind of watched. And then y comes from 3t. Lots of listening, not a lot of talking. So 3t, t squared minus t, your mode is parametric. Everything else is right out of that sheet. It's in front of your face. So keep everything in front of you. Now we're going to keep cruising. So if you are in a stuck spot, you have to yell out what it is, because there's no time for you to get sidetracked. Okay? To the next piece, you're going to graph this, but you have to choose how much you're going to graph of it. If you go to window now, which is where my cursor is right now, window has got a new option, a T-min and a T-max. So on our sheet, our T-min and T-max, if you look at it, and this is, I'm going to roll this out of the way, this is part B that's showing. That's -2 to 3. A was from -3 to -1. That's what I'm talking about. Those are those starting values. So if I do A, which would be, I can't see it on the screen, but -3 would be my minimum T. Oops, sorry, I hit enter the wrong button. Yeah, I go to. Got to remember I'm on a computer. But -3, it has to be this negative, by the way, not a minus sign. -3 till 1. That's where that T between -3 and 1 stands. I don't know what it stands for. Step size is, this little 0.13 is how spaced are they? By 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, however you want to do that. So T step 0.13 is pretty small. I'm going to leave it there just because it sounds interesting. Now to make this graph, there is a zoom fit option, there's zoom standard, there's some others that are, but all the zoom options are pretty much the same because we're still graphing on the XY coordinate grid. We just have this timestamp. So as you're thinking of how am I going to get this to fit, it's the same as before. Like you kind of want to picture out what you're going to graph and do your best to guess what it'll be. I'm going to do zoom 6 just because I think it's going to be a decent graph. And that's what I get. Okay. So it graphed part of it. So y equals is not y equals like it used to be. So I'm going to go back to the beginning. If you get sidetracked, you don't get to get sidetracked anymore because it's really a matter of just paying attention at the time. So down to function, you went to parametric mode, you hit enter. This is under mode. You went to y equals, and we went to our worksheet, and we put in number 1, and we put in its x equals t squared minus 2 and y equals 3t. Under window, we put in that what the t going from -3 to 1 is something we can do in the window with -3 and 1. Oops. If I had my regular calculator, this would be a lot better. -3 and 1. And then we can choose other things like the size of the window. If you hit graph, it's only going to graph that piece of it. So if you remember Friday, it just graphs a part of it because it's the time, it's the plots for those particular timestamps. If I change my time to what it is in part B, -2 to 3, and you can play with that, it'll graph a different section of that same sideways parabola. So now it's going to be -2, and then it'll be 3 underneath it. And if I hit enter, oh, by the way, you can borrow one of my calculators up here too. I have 3 if you need one. Uno, dos, tres. If I get -2 and 3, hit graph again on my standard window, it graphs a different chunk of it. So the T is about what part of the graph do you want to graph? It's obviously a sideways parabola, which is a kind of a square root kind of graph. If you have your phones in front of you and not a calculator, that's not going to work. So grab a calculator, please. So that's the picture. If I wanted to go to part C and take a look at that, that's one that is -3 to 3 is a little bit different image, so I'm just going to slide it over a little bit further. So negative.
What's your initial T-step value?
So I'm using A, B, and C as this T min and T max is the thing that's changing in A, B, and C.
7.5.
What I did for your window, do you remember I hit zoom 6? I chose a window of zoom 6, the zoom standard. And then I went in and changed my times under window to various times. So if I choose -2 and 3, which is part B that's on my screen right now, then if I hit graph, it'll graph the appropriate section of it. So you're choosing how much of the graph do you want to graph. Not all of it. If you want all of it, you got to go infinity, -infinity to infinity. That's the only way to get the full picture. So that's the start of it. Part C is -3 to 3, so it'll be a little bit more a little broader. -3 to 3, hit graph, and it's just more of it. And it's balanced. So it shows you in that particular time step, they're about the same. Okay, so T-step was part of it, and I chose you, the T-step that I have is really small. So 0.13, if your T-step is large, that's actually the next piece. Is now what we're going to do is graph these. If you put in a time step of 1, a T-step, that means -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, and 3 are the times that get plugged in. So when you change that T-step, it just says, how often am I putting in a T? It's very herky-jerky because it's connecting points from very discrete points. And if I make it every 2 seconds, down below, that T-step goes to 2, and you hit graph again, then it gets really, because it's graphing and it's skipping some too, because every 2 seconds it's plotting what would the point be. If I go to a value that's really large, you're going to get to a point where only one point shows up. So T-step of 6 in graph, I'm getting one line which is connecting 2 endpoints. The 2 points at -3 and 3. So how detailed do you want that graph to be? That's connecting the 2 ends of a graph that we know to look more like a sideways parabola. It's only connecting the 2 end tips, which makes a straight line. So it draws a line between the points automatically in parametric mode. The points that get plotted get a line. So the more detail you want, you got to make that T-step itty-bitty. 0.1 is pretty itty-bitty, and it'll give you a very nice smooth looking curve. Okay. If you want to go more detailed, you'll also get to see it carve out over time. Like instead of 0.1, if I go 0.01, 0.01 for my T-step, now you're going to see this graph actually slowly trace out. The benefit of that really small step is to see the detail and to watch it trace. Kind of watch the pen almost like in live action. That's the parametric mode, and you're welcome to use it on anything you tackle. So as far as graphing is concerned, your big parameter pieces are how much do you want to graph? That's T minimum to T maximum. Make sure you got them appropriately put in, and you have to have the mode in parametric so you get all these options for X and Y. They both will have a T involved. And then how detailed you want it is the T step. 0.1 and 0.01 will do the job. 0.01 will give you a lot more detail and it'll slow it down for you. Okay? So that's the parametric mode. Now we can use it like a super duper gigantic tool. So if I keep cruising, like the next, let's take a look at this. I want to go to number 2. We didn't get to plot this the other day when we were talking in class. So 2C, and I don't think it's showing up on my screen. Hang on a second. I'm having some error server issues. Come back. There we go. Okay. Come on, buddy. That's the one I wanted. Okay, so that's off to the side. That's the curve I want to go for. So take a second to grab this one. This one's from 0 to 2 pi, so it's in trig form. So I'm going to go to y equals, you guys have cosine of t as your x. What gets cool about these, and we also want to be in a consistent mode, that t being in pi form, having some kind of pi involved, is a big red flag that says, oh, we're doing radian mode. You still have to call what mode you're in, radians or degrees. If it were 0 to 360, you'd go degrees. Okay, so you got radians, you're looking at 2c. Okay, and the 2c is 2 cosine of t. Is mine a little bit different than yours? I think it is. Yeah, you guys have, yours says 2 cosine of t, so don't mind, I'm going to use yours, so don't mind me. I'm just going to try and follow yours for whatever reason. Mine's, so you notice mine doesn't have a 2 on it, it just says cosine. So 2 cosine of t. Cosine t. Okay, and then you took y sine of t, and you can close the parentheses, but every time you hit that x button that used to be x's, now it's going to print out a t. And then 2 sine of t, which is kind of fun. You're going to find out they're interesting graphs. They're totally different. Window is where you're going to decide what type of shape we're going to deal with. We're in a trig mode, so your choice of window is either you're going to play around until you figure it out, or you're going to try things like zoom trig. The 7th option under zoom is a good place to start. Okay. Ah, that's what's so fun is if you get to playing it. Now, right now my step size, this is the pain of a really small step size, is that it's actually really, really slow. And that doesn't, look at that. That's kind of circular-ish, but not quite. So there's it. Now, the things that'll go wrong. It's not showing up. It's choppy. There's only one point. There's not anything graphed. Have to do with that window of your t minimum, t maximum, and all the little, and how you shape it. I'm also going to choose, this is a cool option for y'all's graphs, z-square. Zoom 5 squares up the sides so that if something's circular, it'll look circular. If it's not, it'll definitely show up. It shows it in real form. If you're in a graph that you don't want to finish, hit the on button and it'll stop along the way too. Sometimes it's too slow to even handle. If you hit on during a graph, it stops. So then you can go find out what's going on. Like that t min and max, first I need to fix it, 0 and 2 pi. And you could, by the way, can hit 2 and hit the pi button right above the caret. You can write pi in your time stamps. It's okay. My step size, it's right from your sheet.
Oh, is it the 2 sine t?
So we're doing 2c. And my 2c is different. So I'm doing your 2c. So it's right off of your sheet. 2 cosine of t, 2 sine of t. My step size is too small and it was going so slow. So I put 0.1 instead of 0.01. 1/10 instead of 1/100. I'm in a graph mode that I've played with a little bit. Oh, that's a lot better. Whew. So much better. Yeah. Okay, so take a look at 2 cosine t, 2 sine t.
Yep.
Okay. Window is from 0 to 2 pi.
Yep, and t step is 0.13.
Okay. And then on your window, look at your x min and x max. Are you seeing a regular window?
Okay, what should they be at?
I don't know, look at your x min and x max. Mine's -8 to 8. My min and max for y are -5 to 5, roughly. Nothing too serious. Okay, what's that? My x scale, 1.5, and my y scale is 1. That's just the tick marks on the axes.
Did you say your y min and y max?
-5 to 5.
Hey, it's still not coming on my chemistry too.
Okay, I'll come take a look at it, see if there's something else going on. But the only other things too is if your graphs are actually on, you want to make sure those equal signs are darkened as well. Make sure that. Yep, you got to go radians. That's another piece, radian mode instead of.
Oh,
If you're not in radian mode, your 360 is way off the charts.
that makes sense.
That's another
Okay.
issue as well.
If you, okay, that could be it. I wasn't in radian mode, that's why it didn't show up. Radian mode, I can do it.
Yeah, so we went radian mode.
That's it.
Yeah, well, that's the keep on